Hey guys, it's Mrs. Thixton again, and I'm here to talk to you about how we're going to trace our puzzle pieces, our monster tessellations, onto our grid so that we can finish this project. So this is where it starts to get fun. So I want everyone to have their grids that they created and their puzzle pieces that they've created together on their page. Now, what you're going to do is you are going to line up your puzzle piece with this middle second row square. This is the one we're working on, okay? Now, remember those lines that we talked about where our two pieces came together on our puzzle piece? Well, we're going to line up those lines with our grid lines. So you can see I've lined this black line that I have with Sharpie here. I've lined it up right here. And this one, maybe I should make that with Sharpie too, but I think you can see where those two parts of my piece come together. I've lined them up with this line of my grid here, my horizontal line. So once you have those lined up, I want you to carefully trace your puzzle piece. Now, depending on your piece, this can be kind of tricky. It might take a couple seconds. That's okay. All right, so when you're done, you're going to have something that looks like that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our puzzle piece and we're going to slide it one spot over. And you're going to see, look, it fits perfectly into that line that I just drew. Now, I already have this side of my puzzle piece drawn, right? So do I need to go, when I trace this, do I need to go down that line? No, I don't. It's already there. So I'm going to line it up to my puzzle pieces. It should, again, line up with your line here. And the vertical line and the horizontal line should line up as well. If it doesn't, it's more important that you line it up to your puzzle piece. Okay, so line it up to your puzzle piece and then go ahead and trace your three sides of your tessellation monster. Now we have two that are lined up. Now, what do we do about the edges here? Because you might be looking at this thinking, I know that my piece is going to go off the edge of my page, so I should just leave that and not worry about that, right? Well, actually, you're wrong, because we need that little piece for this piece to make sense. So, we're going to line it up, and we only have just a little tiny bit to the edge of our page. Little tiny bit to the edge of the page, and that's okay. All right, so now I'm going to come over here and line this up. It's going to go off the edge of my page there, but I'm going to trace what's still on the page. So now I have my first row of my tessellations done. Now you might be able to figure this out, that it's going to line up here and it's also going to line up here above and below. So we're going to start above, and I want you to go ahead and line up your piece. And obviously the bottom part is already drawn, so I don't need to draw that. the sides are going off the edge. So I really only need to draw in this little section right here. Okay, now I'll move it over here. Again, I have that part drawn already. The bottom is drawn, the top is off the page. So again, I only really need to draw this little section. All right, one more time to the edge of my page. I know it's hard for you to see here. I'm trying to adjust the camera. There we go. There we go. So now I have two of my lines, two of my sections done. Now I'm going to come down here. Sometimes it's easier to line it up starting in the middle instead of on that edge. Sometimes it gets confusing, so I'm going to go ahead and line mine up in the middle here, making sure it lines up with what's on top of it. And I have 3 sides to trace now. Okay, I'm going to move it over. So the top and the side is done, I just have to do the bottom. Move it over here. I also need to do this side. And one more time, the side is done, I just have that little bit at the bottom. All right. Okay, here we go, one more time. Go to the side. One more over here. So now some kids say, okay, I'm done. Well, almost. Because remember, just like we had to do the sides over here and the top up here, we have to do that little bottom section. Even though there's just a little bit that's still showing up there, we still need to make that into a piece to make it make sense. So here's where it lines up. Okay, I need to draw that little section right there. Here's where it lines up. Draw that little section right there. Let me check and see, I think, yep, I forgot to draw the bottom part over here on that corner, so I need to draw that up there. All right, so now I have all of my tessellation pieces copied onto my grid. Now the next step that you need to do, you need to erase out your grid lines because we don't need those anymore. Those were just to kind of help us figure out where to put our pieces and to help keep it lined up. Now I'm trying to go kind of quick here, so I think you guys will probably do a better job of erasing than I'm going to do, but I want you to understand the steps so you don't get confused here. That was why it was so important that we drew these lines lightly with our pencils because they were only temporary. They were just guidelines for us for our drawings. Anytime that you add in guidelines, you always want to make sure that you draw lightly so that when you erase, it doesn't end up confusing you later. Okay, almost done here. Erasing out my lines. All right, so now my paper is all set to go. Let me see if I need to adjust there. Okay. Now, one thing that we talked about, or maybe we haven't talked about, is that you're going to create your tessellation shapes into monsters. Now, it will take us way too long if we created every single one of our shapes into a monster. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a checkerboard pattern with our monsters because it's going to help your eyes so that it doesn't get too confusing, and then it's also going to make it so it's not going to take you as long to create this project. So we need to label right now which of these pieces is going to be a monster piece and which piece is going to be a non-monster piece. Because if we make our little labels now, it'll help you so you don't mess it up when you go to color it. Once you color it, there's no erasing. So you want to make sure you know what your plan is before you start. So what we're going to do is we're going to do like a checkerboard, and I like to tell my students that one way to think about this is that we're going to have a monster piece, and then there has to be another non-monster piece surrounding it before there's another monster piece, because the two monsters will fight if they get close to each other. So that's what I like to say. It's just kind of a silly little thing that helps my brain understand it a little bit better. Maybe it'll help yours. Okay, so on our monster pieces, we're going to lightly, because we're going to have to erase it, right? We're going to lightly make the letter M for monster piece. So we're going to start off on the upper right hand corner. We're going to make that first monster, that first shape, we're going to make that into a monster piece. Now, even though my whole monster won't fit on here, we're still going to color this like a monster piece. Okay, so you can take a look at my example of my witch, and you're going to see that maybe some areas her head gets cut off or her nose gets cut off, but I colored what you could see of the piece like the rest of the monster. Okay, so I have my monster piece, so I'm going to skip this one. This is next to it. Can't be another monster, otherwise they're going to fight, so that's got to be blank. So this one here is going to have to be a monster, so that one is blank, or a non-monster piece. Okay, so we're going to go down to our next row. Is this one a monster? No, because that one is, and they would fight, right? So non-monster, so this one's going to be a monster, so that one is a non-monster, so this little section over here is going to be a monster piece. Okay, next row. We have a non-monster here, so we need to do monster, non-monster, monster, non-monster. Okay, next row down. We have a monster already, so we can't put another monster, so we're going to skip that first one. Do monster, non-monster, monster. Okay, now this little section down here, we have to color that part like a monster, non-monster, monster, non-monster. So now I am all set to create my tessellation, to color it in and have my creativity come forth in this part of our project. So what I want you to do, if you've not done so already, I shouldn't have to tell you this, but please make sure that your name is on the back of your paper before you start coloring. Alright, I hope that you guys enjoy this project, have fun making your monsters, and I'll see you soon.